This week's message, given by Donna Anderley, Emma Wilson, and Pastor Stephen Noon at the Succasunna United Methodist Church, November 24th, 2019. The message is Reflections, based on Colossians 1:11-14 and Luke 17:11-19.
This morning's New Testament reading comes from the Colossians chapter 1, verses 1 to 14. Being strengthened with all power according to his glorious might, so that you may have great endurance and patience, and giving joyful thanks to the Father, who has qualified you to share in the inheritance of the holy people in the kingdom of the light. For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins. The gospel lesson this morning comes from Luke chapter 17, verses 11 to 19. Now on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." When he saw them, he said, "Go show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were cleansed. One of them, when he saw he was healed, came back, praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet, and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. Jesus asked, Were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? He has no one returned to give praise to God except for this foreigner. Then he said to him, "Rise and go. Your faith has made you well." This is the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ. Thanks be to God. Amen.
Good morning and welcome to our youth-led Thanksgiving service. When Mrs. Klein told her first graders to draw a picture of something for which they were thankful, she thought how little these children who lived in a deteriorating neighborhood actually had to be thankful for. She knew that most of the class would draw pictures of turkeys or of bountiful laden Thanksgiving tables. That was what they believed was expected of them. What took Mrs. Klein aback was Douglas's picture. Douglas was so forlorn and likely to be found close in her shadow as they went outside for recess. Douglas's drawing was simply this: a hand, obviously. But whose hand? The class was captivated by his image. "I think it must be the hand of God that brings us food," said one student. "A farmer," said another, "because they grow the turkeys." "It looks more like a policeman, and they protect us." "I think," said Lavinia, who was always so serious, "that it is supposed to be all the hands that help us, but Douglas could only draw one of them." Mrs. Klein had almost forgotten Douglas in her pleasure at finding the class so responsive. When she had the others at work on another project, she bent over her desk and asked whose hand it was. Douglas mumbled, "It's yours, teacher." Then Mrs. Klein recalled that she had taken Douglas by the hand from time to time. She often did that with the children. But that it should have meant so much to Douglas. Perhaps, she reflected, this was her Thanksgiving and everybody's Thanksgiving. Not the material things given to us, but the small ways that we give something to others. This is an article out of Reader's Digest. I came across this article while looking for inspiration for my reflection this morning. I wanted to tell a Thanksgiving story, but one that captured the image of how it comes to be that the youth lead the church as they are today. I wasn't sure how to go about that, but when I read this story, it captivated and it moved me. Not only because it's a beautiful story of Thanksgiving and of finding joy and being thankful in the little things, but also because it reflects the sentiment that even if or when you don't realize it, you are making an impact in the lives of young people. Yes, you. If you've taught Sunday school, been a confirmation mentor or teacher, worked as a youth leader, attended COP, have raised or are raising a child or a grandchild in the church, or even just shared a pew and a peace be with you with a child or youth of our church, you have made a significant impact in a young life. If you stand up here to speak for the first time and you stumble over your words, but you don't give up because you don't give up, you have shown a young person that it's okay to mess up because the only thing that matters is that you are praising God. I'm sure there are times that you have felt that you are not making a difference. Maybe your teenager hasn't been interested in attending church this past year. Or maybe a majority of your class has stopped attending Sunday school. I know there are days where I've felt defeated. But I'm here to tell you that the reason I am standing before you today is because of the many Christian influences that I've had in my life, the many hands that I could draw of those who have led me here, those who have probably felt defeat at one point as well. However, it is the Apostle Paul who reminds us in Galatians chapter 6, verse 9, "And let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up." So remember that. For someone, you may be that hand. I look around today, especially, at the young faces that I have had the opportunity to impact each week. For those of you that don't know, I'm the youth director here at SUMC. Let's see, where am I? I look around at the young faces that I've had the opportunity to impact each week through my ministry, and I smile with gratitude, not just this week, but always. I reflect on such times like when I'm sitting in the choir loft at the 11 a.m. service, and one or a few of the youth are in the congregation making faces at me. And I smile, and I'm thankful. When I sit in my post-confirmation class devoted, and my one loyal student shows up week after week, I smile, and I'm thankful. When I see the excitement that service brings to the lives of the young people in this church, I smile, and I'm thankful. I'm thankful because although I may not get a chance to know or to see all of the ways that they will go on to bless others throughout their lives, through their faith, or perhaps they don't even know yet how being active in a vibrant, loving church such as SUMC in their youth will follow them into their adult lives. I know that I have followed the call to minister to them. Little do they know, I am the one who is blessed every day. As I look around at our church, at all of the young faces I have not yet had a chance to get to know, I smile, and I am thankful for what's to come.
Good morning. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Emma Wilson, and it is wonderful to see so many joyful faces today. Just to dive right in, I wanted to share with you what Thanksgiving means to me and what I have to be thankful for this year. Thanksgiving not only means it is time to have some delicious food and time to see family, but it also means it is time to think back on what I have to give thanks for this year. Personally, it is a time to show my thanks in front of my Lord and family, not just showing gratitude at my prayers at night. So as I prepared for today, I looked back on what I wanted to give thanks for. I did not want to keep everybody here for an extra 4 or so hours listing all of my blessings from this year, so I will share a small recap. My family is basically my world, to be honest. My sister can tell you I hang out with my friends 24/7 and I always stay locked in my room, but really, being with my family and seeing my family every day makes me feel a way I cannot explain. Any situation I'm stuck in, my family is there and they know what to do. The amount of energy and joy they have is something anyone would wish for in a family. The Lord put me in this family, and every year I thank Him more and more for it. I don't know if my parents could love me any more than they do, and I don't know of a sister more relatable and reliant I could ask for. Moreover, the Lord has led me into a new school this year. Everything about the school suits me. It seemed to be one of the hardest choices I had to make, and having my family tell me to give it up to the Lord was the best advice I could have received. Doing that, my faith has grown, achieving one of my post-confirmation goals, keeping that strong connection between the Lord and I. On this lovely holiday, we have so many things to be thankful for. whether or not they come to mind right away. Of course, we have the stuffing, the turkey, corn, or any type of food you may feast on. But one thing to remember past these basic elements of the holiday is that the Lord gave you life. He gave you your joys. He gave you your pleasures. He put you on a path to let you personally thrive in your life. He created this country where we all live equal, where all are welcome, and where all are respected. So if nothing specific comes to mind in your prayers, pray for these big picture things on Thanksgiving. The Lord deserves the recognition for giving each and every one of us the miracles and blessings of this year. Thanksgiving is that time to let the Lord know you are grateful not only on Sundays and days of worship, but you have been grateful every day of this year for Him. I appreciate the faith this church has placed on me today, allowing me to address my church family. I want to close today being grateful for each of you. I hope you all feel the love from this church and our Lord as I do. Happy Thanksgiving to each of you and your families. Thank you.
Songs and videos and everything we do here today as a church is not to please people, but to glorify our God and count all the blessings that we receive from the Lord. And I'm very grateful that I would be able to share my message with Emma and Donna this morning. As we think about Thanksgiving, I want you to imagine a perfect Thanksgiving day in your mind. What's there? What would be essential? Yeah? Looking for the... Let me show you something, though. Of course, Thanksgiving is not about turkey. It's not just about turkey. It's not just about food, as Emma said. But I guess this is what most American people might imagine when they think of a perfect Thanksgiving. So if I made you feel hungry. But here's another image of Thanksgiving feast. In Africa, Thanksgiving feast doesn't include a turkey, but lots of healthy vegetables. Now, in South Korea, where I grew up, people would cook beef and fish instead of a turkey on a Thanksgiving day called Chuseok, which literally means autumn eve. So when I hear the word Thanksgiving, here's the image that first comes to my mind. Chuseok, Korean Thanksgiving, is one of the two major holidays in Korea, lasting 3 or 4 days. Families would get together at least 1 or 2 days before Chuseok, spending time together, talking, playing, and eating, and also preparing for a Thanksgiving feast. As I grew up, our Thanksgiving feast always happened in the morning, not in the evening. But there was one thing we did as a family before we ate, worshiping God. We had a family worship together. Almost 30 people in my extended family sat around the table and sang some hymns of thanksgiving. As a boy, it was almost a torture to sit still before all kinds of yummy dishes while listening to my grandfather's message, who was an elder in a Methodist church. I learned an important lesson for a pastor early on. Don't preach a long sermon in front of food. He always talked about counting out blessings from God, but as a boy, I was counting the number of dishes on the table and planning what I would eat first. But as I grew, I learned that it was an expression of our faith. That our Chuseok would always begin with God, begin with counting our blessings from God and thanking Him for what He has done and for who He is in our lives. It was an expression of our faith that the richness of our thankfulness toward God had to be shared even before we would share our first Thanksgiving meal as a whole family. I don't know about you, but it seems that the importance of Thanksgiving has been diminishing in my life over the years. And it's partly because I'm living in this home away from my home. And I've been disconnected from my family tradition for at least 16, 17 years. Interestingly, I recently read an article that expressed a similar concern about Thanksgiving. This article described Thanksgiving as the middle child holiday that becomes more and more overshadowed by its two siblings, Halloween and Christmas. You know, Thanksgiving doesn't seem to have as much excitement, fun, festivity as Halloween has. It doesn't have the glitz and colorful lights and joy of unwrapping gifts and hustle and bustle of Christmas either. The main point of this article was that Thanksgiving has diminished in importance in this culture. Does this mean that the people don't care much about the meaning of this holiday? Does that mean that we care less about gratitude? In today's gospel, the Luke tells an interesting story about 10 lepers. They were healed while still on their journey. But the only one person returned to thank Jesus. Jesus says, were not 10 healed? Where are the 9? This may also be the question Jesus asking us of today, because we know gratitude doesn't seem to come easily these days either. I heard a story about a man who refused to say grace at a dinner because he didn't think it was right to thank God for food when so many people have none. Of course, it's a theologically legitimate question whether it would be appropriate to give thanks for the abundance we enjoy when others lack the basic necessities of life. Something we all have to wrestle with as Christians. However, we are thanking God not because we are in a perfectly satisfying condition. We are thanking God not because everything in our lives is fine. Here's a story. A little boy wanted $100 badly and prayed hard. And he decided to write a letter to the Lord requesting the $100. The letter was mistakenly sent to the IRS, and the agent who opened the letter was so impressed, touched, and amazed that he sent the little boy a $5 bill, thinking that this would make him happy. The little boy was delighted with the $5 bill and sat down to write a thank you note to the Lord. It said, "Dear Lord, thank you very much for sending me the money. However, I noticed that for some reason you had to send it through the IRS. As usual, they worked hard and deducted $95. You know, we can still thank God when things are not perfect. We know this. Of course, God doesn't demand our gratitude to Him, but He is pleased with us when we come to Him with our grateful heart and our presence. Like the one leper who turned around and came back to Jesus with gratitude. With a gift of praise and presence, he named and expressed his gratitude before Jesus. Importantly, he was the only one who learned that his faith had played a role, not the other 9. As this story reminds us, God's grace is given to everyone. It's possible to receive God's grace without thanking Him. We can still receive God's grace with an ungrateful spirit. But only grateful Christians grow in understanding and experiencing God's grace. And that's what the other 9 missed. It's not that they did anything wrong, it's that they didn't see their blessing, didn't name, voice their blessing. So they missed out on being made whole. On this Thanksgiving, let's look at our world, my brothers and sisters. Filled with trouble, yes, but also filled with blessings. Families that care for each other, people who put others first and willing to sacrifice for themselves, for others, for a greater good. Churches that care for the community through giving and sharing what they have. Now let's look at ourselves. Having problems, of course. we do have problems in our lives, but also filled with blessings. When we take a look at our lives from this perspective, we know there are things that have always been there, remain in the background quietly, making our lives meaningful, joyful, and fulfilling. There are certain blessings that are hidden within the moments of our past, blessings that don't seem like a cause for gratitude at that time. There are people who have always been there supporting us and caring for us. Remember the quote from William Ward in November Steeple? Feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it. If you're still carrying this kind of gifts with you today, my brothers and sisters, don't miss this Thanksgiving season. Some people decry that we are living in a culture of ingratitude, a culture where the grievances is more prevalent than gratitude. Whether you agree with this statement or not, here's an important question for us to ask on this Thanksgiving. Is our tradition, practice of Thanksgiving, leading us to live more as the grateful 10% or as the ungrateful 90%? The choice is yours. Will you live as the grateful 90%, or will you come to the Lord and name your blessings with the gift of praise and presence and live as the grateful 10%? Amen.